Anywhere, your smartphone, in your car, to work, or live at KissWTLZ.com. We're Kiss 107.1.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk. I am your host, Kareem Bowen, for the next hour of conversation. Those of you who are watching in the social media stream will be able to tell that I'm actually doing this broadcast remote on the road. But I'm so glad to have you all with me on today. Give a shout out to the Geraldine Bowen Walker that happens to be my mother. How are you doing? Hello there to you as well. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to my main man, my producer, Matt. We call him White Soul. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's lonely in the studio without me.
Yeah, it is. I miss my buddy.
I miss you too, my man. But we are yet making this happen. I certainly thank you for manning the station and making great things happen, and allowing us to be able to do this here today. But we're going to get going for today's show. Today's show, we're going to talk to a woman who is actually trying to have it all. We're going to have some conversations. I told you we're going to be celebrating our Black queens and the work that they are doing in the community. Our sisters are doing it for themselves. We got on tap coming up as well in the future, Laura Jones, who is killing it with the Amazon Shipped. So we're going to talk with her. Good evening to all of you that are coming in. Let's like, tag, and share this conversation with others. Sister Stacy Crosby, she is also in the social media stream. Let's populate this conversation. We're also going to have some conversations as we talk about what's on my mind. It is impossible for us not to have a conversation about the Saginaw High School, the Trojans all year tailgate that took place. And the drama that unfolded after. I'm going to give you my opinions because I was really kind of quiet. I said, I'm going to stay over here. I'm a cavalier. I'm going to stay in my corner. But I want to give you my insights on what I think is happening, what the situation is. We're going to get to all of that and then a little bit more. But as we always start every single show, we start talking about what's on my mind. What's on my mind. And on today, as you know, I said it once before, I'll say it again. That I live my life 365 Black. And so each of our times that we have the ability to come together, I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to share Black history. This day in Black history, on this day in 1991, Uncle Clarence Thomas was confirmed as a Supreme Court Justice. Whether you like it or not, this is a part of our Black history. In July 1991, Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American to sit on the Supreme Court, announced his retirement after 34 years. President George Bush nominated Uncle Tom Clarence, a 43-year-old African-American judge known for his conservative views and his beliefs, to fill the seat. Thomas had been chairman of the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, during the Reagan administration. Y'all remember Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, which never seems to work. And in 1990, Bush had appointed him to the U.S. Court of Appeals. As the confirmation hearings for Thomas' Supreme Court nomination got underway, he evaded controversy over his conservative views on issues such as abortion, which we have a lot to say about that today in the review. By refusing to state a clear political position, he seemed headed for an easy confirmation until the infamous day that Miss Anita Hill, a former aide, stepped forward and accused him of sexual assault. Hill, who had served as the aide to Thomas at the Department of Education and the EEOC during the 80s, alleged that Supreme Court nominee Thomas had repeatedly made sexual offensive comments to her. Beginning October 11th, 1991, the Senate Judiciary Committee had held 4 days of televised hearing on these charges. Americans were shocked by both the frankness of Hill's testimony and the unsympathetic response of the all-male committee. That's something that should never happen today, would never happen in today's Me Too movement. Some of who were openly antagonistic toward Ms. Hill. However, Thomas was seen mentally capable and stable enough to serve. And on October 15th, 1991, the Senate narrowly voted to approve Thomas' confirmation. Since his confirmation, we know that he has to claim to fame that he has officially gutted the final pieces of what we knew once as affirmative action, which is kind of interesting, seeing that he was a benefactor of that very program. And he also has led the conservative group. He is the lead of this conservative leaning court, and is also responsible for the undoing of Roe v. Wade. So that is your month, or your day in Black History Month, as we look at what is going on. Good evening to each and every one of you. Sheila Meredith, Jackie LaShawn, good evening. What's on my mind? Is that a piano? Is you love it? You love it? If I could play it, we'd be amazing. So we are going to continue. I got to talk about this because this is what's happening. And many times I've talked to so many brothers who want to make impact, but they say, I'm not a political person. I don't get into politics. But it's so important for us to understand that our vote is our voice. Kevin McCarthy, we know, and I shared with you all last week, that he was ousted as the Speaker of the House. The House on this past Tuesday voted 216 to 210 to remove California Republican. This was 2 weeks ago. California Republican Kevin McCarthy from a suspension as Speaker of House. It was historic. It took him 100 and some times to get confirmed, and they got rid of him, largely because he was so concerned with getting the position that he was not thinking about how he was going to govern from that position of weakness. We have since then seen Scalise, a Republican from Louisiana, run for the position against Jim Jordan, and he won 113 to 99 Wednesday because a majority wins, and so he got 113. Understanding the situation that was at hand, he recognized that he would still have to be with the would still have to contend with what was happening in the far right caucus of their Republican Party. And so he's decided that he wasn't doing this anymore. He quit. He threw in the towel. We know Scalise because he was shot during a congressional baseball team practice back in 2017. Why does this matter to the village? Because there is no governing without a Speaker of the House. The House is now officially in limbo until it elects a Speaker. And members of the 118th Congress can't be sworn in. The House can't set rules to govern itself, and it can't consider legislation or create committee assignments. House Republicans have pledged to unleash a slew of investigations out there against President Biden. All of these are now put on pause because there is no Speaker of the House. Good evening to you, my brother Terry. And so it's very important that we understand that even though this is politics has a way of impacting our lives. Now, what I will tell you is that Democrats are playing a little game of chicken and mouse. Is it cat and mouse, not chicken and mouse. I'm hungry. I must want some fried chicken. They're playing a small game of cat and mouse because in order to make this happen, the Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to come together. The Republicans don't have the numbers within their own caucus to make it happen. And the Democrats are sitting back, waiting for an opportunity. As Sister Elaine Cook said, show us what the Republicans are made of. It's impossible for them to do so with the far right wingers of their party refusing to do anything. McCarthy was able to, Kevin McCarthy was able to put together a stopgap bill for the spending deficit before. And because that was a bipartisan effort, those who were on his right wing of his party thought that he was working too much with Democrats. So the Democrats, it is a hot mess. Absolutely, Rosa Williams. But this is something for us to keep up because we can't push any appropriations. We can't spend. We can't make things happen. The country is at a standstill. We see things that are happening in Israel. Those of us who are Zionists is the term that they use, who believe in faith in the Bible and fellowship, and believe that we stand with Israel, and we do as the word of God says, pray for the peace of Israel. Our hands are tied in terms of how we're able to effectively respond because we have no speaker. That means that any additional funding, which I'm not opposed to taking a look at a trim, a haircut for what we're providing in Ukraine. I don't understand how we can send trillions and billions of dollars to other countries to fight wars when there are wars against hunger. There's war, an educational war. There's a healthcare war that has gone on in our nations that we are not dealing with. But that's a whole nother situation. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about this Saginaw High all-school tailgate that took place. The Swag magazine social media posts that ensued after. And we're going to have a quick conversation about this because I think that it's important. And I'm saying this because it's important for a variety of reasons. And I've been very careful to make sure, because the individual, I've talked about the all class tailgates. So classes from 1946 to 2023 were all a part of that amazing experience we were sharing here on social media on Straight Talk about how excited we were that all of this was taking place, and how Saginaw has shown up time and time again, really putting its best foot forward and making great things happen in our community. I continue to salute you, because I think that whenever we can change the narrative, we talk about gun violence and how do we stop the violence. One way to stop the violence is to change the narrative. Stop talking about what's wrong in our community, and we begin to celebrate the things that are great in our community. And so the Saginaw High all-school tailgate was an example of Black excellence that I have never seen in a way that I hadn't seen in such a long time, and it was to be commended. Now, following the tailgate, we celebrated and we were on cloud nine, I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday there was a young man who has a great and a really bright future ahead of him by the name of Julian. I think it's Julian Morris is his name. He wrote an article expressing, one young man wrote an article expressing that's what we're going to talk about, Elaine, out in Arizona. I thought it was great, but the class of 2024 was left out. Well, this is the thing. 2024 does not happen until 2024. This is 2023. So I want to share a little bit about what took place. One young man wrote an article and an opinion about what he felt and what he saw. And a part of it, I read the article in its entirety. And some of the things that he addressed were the facts that that the tailgaters that came into town that all returned, and he used the term returned, those tailgaters, those adults, were more concerned with having fun than looking out for the youth that were present. And he cited the fact that the 2024 class really hadn't been looked out at. And that's what you're talking about, Elaine Cook, that the current class had not been looked out for. And he was, upset. And I could understand the frustration. And I appreciate, I am an advocate for kids. And I think that this is why that allows me to kind of have some insight. Not only am I an advocate for kids, but I also understand the power of the pen and the power of the spoken word, the power of journalism and the power that it embraces and what it does for our community. And so as he began to share his opinion, he shared that, there was no place for the high school students to be involved, lackluster attendance at the game. And then some of you as adults started posting pictures of empty stands and things of that nature. And it's just kind of interesting because as we looked at additional pictures that were coming, my initial thought was like, hey, if we're talking about legacy, if we're talking about what we're doing and what we represent and the legacy that we want to live, leave, it's impossible for us not to include young people. But as I began to see some of the additional pictures that were coming forward, the things that people were showing, there were people that attended the game. But you know how we are. When it rains, we're out of there. One of the things that I want to address as well, and I think that needs to be talked about, is I guess there were a number of alumni who returned, who attended, who wanted to go to the game, but because of some antiquated laws or policies by the school, they were unable to do so because they were not actively involved in the school or had children that were currently involved. So I think that that's important for us to address, that that is something that the average citizen cannot be actively involved. Now, here's the thing. I think that as a community, I grew up, and I'm probably one of the last of the Mohicans who had strong grandmothers, strong grandparents who would teach us things such as you don't air your dirty laundry in public. And the essence of what that means is that there are certain conversations that we have that are strictly for the village, that should be addressed in the village. Because when we air those things openly, we allow everyone to get in. And even though it says, well, it should be exposed, because there's some people who are just bombers, brown bombers. They don't care how good something is, they're going to find a reason to complain. And I'm not saying that this is what this young man is, but what I'm saying is that we have to find a way to address the issues that are important. Now, I'm a firm believer that if there is an issue, I'm not going to write an article about the issue. I'm not just going to get on Straight Talk and talk about the issue, but I'm going to talk to the individuals that are involved and ask the questions and get the answers. Because as a journalist, and the crazy thing about it is that social media has created a way for every individual who has an opinion to now have a platform. And to believe it or not, we are all journalistically responsible for the things that we say and we do. And so in doing so, that requires that we have to take the responsibility to make sure that when we air, and this is a key piece, when I make mistakes, when I make a judgment or I say things that are not accurate, as someone who has to have integrity in his reporting, if I'm ever going to be worth a hill of beans, if I'm ever going to be seen as a viable place that is going to give you the real information, that is going to share the truth, we have to be responsible. And so that means that I love the article that he spoke his passion. He said he did. There was one issue that I had, that we live in a day right now where adults teach disrespect is okay as it relates to young people. And I say this because in the article that was written by the young man, and I salute you, Julian, for being powerful and using your words. I teach young people that their words have power and their words have the ability to change the course, the very essence of the direction that we're going. But the issue is whenever PTSA, Parent Teachers Student Association, but parent is the key word there. We cannot refer to parents as children as jokes. That was one of the things that I took that I thought was kind of disrespectful in the tone of the article. And I think as a young man, we all want to celebrate you. We want you to be a beacon of light and a beacon of hope and a voice for the future. As a matter of fact, I've had conversations with your mother and as well as you about bringing you in even onto Straight Talk and co-hosting with me, because I believe that we have to nurture the gifts and the talents and the abilities that our young people have. But one thing that doesn't sit well with me is when young people are disrespectful to adults. Now, let's go one step further. Not only was it the fact that we used the term as the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, Student Association, was a joke, but it was also the fact that there were many people who were part of that organization who donate their time, who donated their resources, who were giving $300-400 to create a space which had been created for the current classmen to be involved in the process. Some of which don't have any skin in the game. They don't have kids who are here. Their kids are grown, and they took the time to give of their time, their talent, and their resources to make sure that Curtin students were a part of the celebratory process. It is disrespectful and hurtful when we don't allow, when we don't celebrate people who are really working hard for our kids. So I want to say, first of all, if I hope the young man comes forward and he does this as well, but to those parents who are leaning into our kids, for those parents who were a part of the creating of a tailgate experience, because many of our kids don't understand what tailgating is. And I heard that there were some explanations and some teaching of what it meant to tailgate and what you do at a tailgate. I want to salute you for your time, your endless endeavors of pushing forward and celebrating young people, of bringing young people to the forefront, of making spaces for young people, even young men like this one, to have a place where they can self-express themselves. Now, so that is how I feel about this. I'm not angry at the young man. I think that as adults, we have to understand that sometimes young people respond out of passion. Our community responds out of passion. So I anticipated that the parent-teachers conference would be packed. I anticipated that the city hall would be packed. I anticipated that the board meeting would be packed, because we are people who operate based upon fuel and passion and no strategic movement. And so what that means is that we'll be angry for a moment because we move by our emotions, but there is no consistency in how we operate from that point forward. I pray that those of you in the community would please prove me wrong by staying committed, by staying consistent, and continuing to do the work. All right. Now, here is another issue that we have here that I need to make sure that we address. And this goes back to what I said about airing our dirty laundry. One of the things that we understand, Saginaw High School, Arthur Hill High School in Saginaw County have been held open really by sheer desire. It has been an understanding for quite some time that the population decline of those communities could no longer house schools, both of which were to house 1,000 or more students in a declining population, where the tax dollars and the tax base and the other components don't have the ability to keep those schools open. So parents, community members, taxpayers, city residents, we have for long been a part of the problem of this process, because we're talking about championships and things of nostalgia, but not really looking at forwardly and proactively toward the future for what type of education would be made available to our young people. And by keeping schools open that were no longer really viable entities, we were stretching dollars and really just throwing bad money after good, because we were not pooling those resources. So to investigate a school or to take a look at a school, there are some issues of concern there. There's a non-functioning cafeteria at Saginaw High School, but if anybody's aware of what happened, I did a walkthrough with the construction company when they're going through. The cafeteria is under construction. That is a part of the process of developing and creating what they're going to do new there. Some facilities are not going to be able to be accessible. We understand if we were going to a hotel or to a department store that was undergoing renovation, one of the things that we would see is a sign that said, "Pardon our dust, under construction." So I'm not a believer that we should kick people while they're down, or while they're changing the dynamics of our current situations to make things better. So, but of course, when others come into the community to look, those are the things that will be reported, like our children are running around like animals, not having the things that are necessary. We are in a transitory period as it relates to our educational process for those students who are in high schools throughout the city of Saginaw. We are finally doing what should have been done some years ago by combining two schools together. There are so many programming elements and companies that are pouring into Saginaw and creating opportunities and an awareness and pathways to employment that we've never had before as two separate schools. So this is one of the reasons I say that we have to have accountability when we take on the power of the pen, or we take on the platform of the mic, that we make sure that we are clearly giving the information the way that it is, that we're supporting those who support, that we're calling people to the table. Now, what I'll tell you is one of the beautiful things is that people are getting involved. And so my desire and my hope is that we all get involved. I want to say something. Armani Brown, excuse me. Maybe I'm a little bit old school, but I don't remember parents doing as much as the child was complaining about when we were kids for us in order to have some of the things for our class. I remember having a student body. These are also issues that was present within each class to represent or bring focus or up to the organization, to the things we wanted to accomplish before the end of the school year as a class. We knew where monies were raised, where they came from, because we were in charge of doing it for ourselves. And I think that is a very important piece. There are some key elements of youth that we're seeing that are dying that helped us to be concerned, that helped us to be accountable, that helped us to be involved. And the student body, I was our class vice president. And so I understood that we were responsible for homecoming. And I think that's one of the things they talked about, the lack of decorations. I don't recall ever going to a school that had a ton of decorations for a homecoming, but I do remember that being the case for prom. So it's important for parents to get engaged and to get involved in schools. It's important for you to be advocates for what your children are experiencing, what their reality is in school, for you to get involved, and for us to create and demand that our young people have things such as student bodies, such as student councils that have the responsibility of fundraising, because everything should not be given to you. As a matter of fact, you appreciate things that you have to work for a little bit more. And it's important for us to make sure that we dot every I and cross every T as it relates to our young people. I had to get that off my back. I wanted to share it. Many of you have been asking what it is and what my thoughts were. I certainly salute this young man for being bold to speak, but I would challenge him as he moves forward as a mentor. And if I could mentor in any possible way, I would certainly make myself available. That just as I have to do here, when I get it wrong, I've got to apologize. I think that you would gain a great deal of respect for the areas where you got it wrong, for those parents that you overlooked, for the parents that you referred to as a joke. That you would apologize, that you would take accountability and responsibility. After all, that's what means to become a young adult. So great job to the city of Saginaw. Let's not get caught in our emotions. There is a lot that we are doing. This was yet a great success. Every opportunity where things don't go exactly right is an opportunity for us to begin to relook, to readdress, and to make some changes. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And we'll come back. We're going to talk about our queens, some of these Black women who are out there having it all: business, careers, jobs, children, and you can have it all too. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more of Straight Talk.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
Batter up, Mid-Michigan. Ryan Wasik here from Bell Wasik GMC Buick, your only local Buick dealer and home of the lifetime warranty. I want to watch the great American pastime, but my bases are loaded and I'm way too busy. So this month, help me catch up, and I'll help you catch a fly deal. It's my World Series of trade-ins. So if your old ride's a swing and a miss, you could get up to $3,000 more than Kelley Blue Book value based on the price of the car you pick. Only during my Grand Slam Payoff Playoff. Plus, my solution specialists are better than a box of Cracker Jacks. They never let the fear of striking out keep them from trying their hardest. Our goal is to hit a home run every time so you can drive home in a car you love. So if your old ride's been striking out, pitch it, and you can get up to $3,000 more than Kelley Blue Book value based on the price of the car you pick. But hurry, just 1, 2, 3 strikes and this deal is out. I'm Ryan Wasik and I'm your dealer for the people and your only local Buick dealer. See my all-star rides at RyanApproved.com. That's RyanApproved.com.
Credit requires bank approval. Vehicle purchase price determines actual trade allowance. Negative equity may be refinanced. Offer absolutely ends October 31st, 2023.
There's the old way to shake your moneymaker. And there's the new way.
Hi, one 500 times moneymaker ticket, please.
500 times moneymaker, the new $50 instant game from the Michigan Lottery, has everyone doing a happy dance. How about this for a two-step? 50 chances to win and top instant prizes of $6 million. And for a twist, you can multiply your prize up to 500 times. So hustle in and get your 500 times moneymaker today, because a lot of play can make your day. Knowing your limits is always the best bet.
My daughter is normally a little goofball, but after a bad night's sleep, she's too tired to be anything. That's why I trust Pure Z's Kids. Pure Z's Kids is mindfully formulated just for kids. Their non-habit forming, drug-free products help my daughter fall asleep naturally, giving her the rest to be her best.
I'm a dinosaur.
Her best dinosaur.
Pure Z's Kids, for ages 4 and up when needed. Explore our products at zquill.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, it's Steve Harvey, y'all. Here's what happened on the Steve Harvey Morning Show.
Tyrese is being sued by Fast and Furious director Brian Barber for defamation and libel, and he wants $10 million in damages.
Well, Tyrese, tables have turned. Here come another song. Sue me. Oh, Lord. They trying to sue me. Kiss 107.1, simply the best R&B.
This is the KISS community page where you'll find out about everything going on in the Great Lakes Bay region areas of Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. Michigan State University Extension is offering a free mental health first aid class that's happening Wednesday, October 11th and Thursday, October the 12th from 12:30 until 4:30 p.m. Learn how to assist someone experiencing a mental health challenge or crisis. This is a virtual event and you must register online. Great Lakes Bay Community Resource Association along with Shiloh Baptist Church invite you to a resource fair. Saturday, October 14th at Shiloh Baptist Church, 295 Grant Street in Carlton Township. The fun is from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. There will be health screenings, free raffle drawings, and safety helmets for kids. Remembering our babies in heaven together. The Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day is October the 14th, and Wave of Light is having a free community remembrance event for families who have experienced pregnancy and infant loss and their friends and family. It takes place from 6 until 8 p.m. at the Saginaw Township Soccer Complex, 3575 McCarty Road in Saginaw. Community organizers, please send your events to the KISS community page at least 2 weeks in advance. For more details and to find out about all the great events, log on to KISSWTLZ.com.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
Hello, this is Kareem. We're back with more of Straight Talk. I am glad to be with you on today. As you can see, I am now sharing, for those of you who are in the social media stream, I am now sharing the screen with one lovely Andrea Patterson. How are you doing, Andrea?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing well. It's so good to have you. Before we get into our conversation here today, I saw Pastor Taurus Simpson in the social media stream, and I want to say, Taurus, it is a pleasure to be a brother in arms with you. This past weekend, you and I were out of the cycle, but help, healing, engagement, love, and presence. The men met and did session 2 with our young men. And from what I'm told, the eyes of everyone in there was just a little bit misty. The men were sharing who they are, who is my identity. And those young boys were so extremely impacted by some of the exercises that were taking place. And it appears, if you're watching a social media stream, we may be having, I'm not sure if it's me or if it's Taurus giving you a shout out, or if it is Miss Patterson. One of us are experiencing some internet issues, and I don't think that it's me. So if you could check your internet as we get into this conversation. We hear you clearly, but we're not seeing your video very clear. All right, so I want to give, first of all, a welcome to Miss Patterson, who's with us today. We're going to begin a conversation, and we're going to be bringing other women to the table. And we're going to be talking about women who are really, there was a time when a woman could not do very many things. And now we find that women are entrepreneurs, they're owners of business, they're going and getting their education, they're having a family, they're being married, all of these amazing things. And so we're going to have this conversation with Miss Andrea Patterson Bell, whom I've known for some time. Welcome to Straight Talk, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so Andrea, you are you are a divorcee, you're a mother, you're an entrepreneur, a new title again, you're a student, a child advocate, and an author. How do you find time to bring all of these pieces together?
Well, I have to admit, I don't have time all the time. However, I have recognized that you have to do it all in different seasons. You can have all that you desire, but it doesn't have to all necessarily be at the same time. You have to allow things to play out in your life in God's timing, and you can just have it all in different seasons of your life. So that's what I'm just a living testimony that, my dreams, my desires, they don't all come at the same time. They come in stages, and in seasons. And so I've accepted that. And once you make peace with that, you can have it all.
There's one title that I missed, and it's a new title that you don, and it is called An Empty Nester. How does it feel?
Amazing. I hate to say that because that sounds like I'm so, I don't love my children. I dearly love my children, but I love to be able to come home and the chair is still where I left it and I can hear complete peace. I don't have to break up an argument. I can just come in, I can put my feet up, I can just relax. I don't have to have so many people pulling on me. Mom, what's for dinner? Mom, this, mom, I don't have to hear all of that too much anymore. Now they will call me and do that, but I thank the Lord that, when I walk in the door, it is just me and these walls. So I'm enjoying the season that I'm in. And again, I didn't always operate in this season. So I'm in the season of empty nesting and I'm enjoying it. Yes.
Let's help our audience understand why we would be talking to you on today. I want to just give us, who is Andrea? If someone were to ask you to give a self-introduction, how would you define yourself and who you are?
Well, again, you've mentioned that I'm a divorcee. I'm a mother of 3. I am a saved woman who I am excited to know Jesus. I'm excited to walk with Jesus. And I'm a person who literally walks by faith. There's no way to describe me without describing the love of my life, which is Jesus. And he has directed me and he has ordered my steps and he's named me affectionately and I operate in who God says that I am. And to describe myself, I would say that I am the person that is the epitome of being more to me than what you see. So there's so many layers to me. There's so many levels to, my personality, my character, and I'm consistent in my faith.
I want to talk about, because you alluded to something that I want to dive into. Let's just dive into it. You were referring to an affectionate term that God gave you. What's that term? And express to those who are listening what that term means.
Okay, so in 2008, while going through one of the most difficult times in my life, I was coming out of a marriage. I had not filed for divorce yet, but the Lord let me know that it was time for me to go. And I really didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go, what I was going to face. But God spoke to me in my fear, in my vulnerability, and said, "You're my covered girl. I have you covered in every area of your life, and for me to trust him." And those words changed the trajectory of my entire life. And so I operate in what God called me. And I know that I didn't give myself that name because, again, I don't want people to think that I'm operating in vainglory, but it is a term and a name that the Lord gave me. And I was, reluctant about sharing that because people automatically say, "Oh, well, you're vain and you think you're this or you think you're that." But God gave me a peace about walking in who God called me to be and walking in the title in which he gave me. And he said, "You're my cover girl." It just is what it is. So I don't make any apologies. I've made peace with that. And you either love it or you don't, and that's fine. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I operate in who God called me to be.
All right, and I want to make a distinction because it's not God's cover girl, it's God's covered girl, correct?
Well, honestly, he said, I have you covered in every area of your life. However, when he spoke the words to me, he said, you are my cover girl. And he took me back to things that had happened to me and things that I dealt with as a child. And he brought me to the book of Esther, and he talks about her beauty. And he gave me the scripture that I'm going to give you beauty for ashes. And he spoke to my physical being, but he also spoke to my spiritual being. And so when he did that, he said, although you're my cover girl, I have you covered in every area of your life. So I just choose to say that I'm a cover girl who's covered.
A
God
covered
has
girl.
covered me.
When you look at what the things that you have gone through, let's talk about, I want to do this in reverse fashion, because normally I would start talking about how you know, the process and how you got through the process. But let's talk about some of your latest wins, some of the things that you have been able to accomplish. And you know, you have recently graduated from Wilberforce University. This is what, in May of this past year,
Yes.
or this year. With honors.
Mm-hmm. So
You are currently working, you made a transition from healthcare and now working as a child advocate in a government, making, you know, more money than you have ever made before.
Amen.
You are an entrepreneur. Let's talk a little bit about God's covered girl and your life and your space as an entrepreneur. Share with us a little bit about the business that you started a number of years ago, and how that business and how what God was doing in your life allowed you to minister in a way that people can't really begin to understand. And I want to talk about adorations.
Okay, adorations, and that's my favorite word. And that's also a word that God gave me in a dream. And I didn't really understand what that meant. And he gave me that in a dream, maybe like in 2004, not knowing that eventually I would, you know, have my own business. But I was in San Francisco, or I believe I was in San Jose, and I was at a church, and I was late. I had got there. I was in the back. I didn't know anybody there. And a man was a guest speaker there. And he spoke a word that day. And he asked me to stand, and he began to prophesy into my life. And at that time, I was married. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had already graduated, you know, prior to my marriage, from beauty school in Chicago. And so, you know, I had clients here and there, but nothing major, nothing where I could, you know, start a business on. And he asked me, he said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't do anything. He says, no, what is it that you do? And I said, well, I have an in-home hair salon. And, you know, I do a few people here and there. And, you know, you don't want everybody in your home. So you're very selective on who comes to your home. So I didn't want to blow my clientele up. I just wanted a few people because I didn't want everybody in my home. And so fast forward, once I got divorced, you know, and I had worked just maybe a few months. And I remember it being around Christmas time. And I was sitting on the floor, and I said, God, I don't have a job. I had been laid off. I said, I have mouths to feed. I have bills to pay. There's things that I need. And so while I was praying and asking God for, you know, this next move in my life, the phone rang. And there was a woman who owned a salon. And prior to all of this years ago, I interned at her salon. And she remembered me. She stated, there was always something about you that I trust. I trust you. And my husband is dying. And I remember how when you would get money, you would wait in the back and you would go through the money that you would make and you would set out your ties. And so she saw things that I didn't realize that she was paying attention to. And so she said, my husband is dying and he has cancer, and I don't know how much longer he has. Would you come back? She says, is your license still good? I said, yes, I've always kept my license active. And so she said, would you come back to my salon and manage my salon and allow me to tend to my husband without having to close my salon. So she said, this is the percentage that you can take with you. This is the percentage that I'll get. Everybody's happy, but I don't want to close my doors. So the Lord said, go and help her. And I helped her keep her salon open for 4 or 5 years. And I was faithful to her. And I never took anything that wasn't mine. I didn't steal anything. I was faithful to her, and I served her like I would want somebody to serve me. And it was time for me to move on. 5 years later, her husband had passed away, and she was ready to come back to her salon and pick up where she had left off. And the Lord said, it's time for you to go, because I didn't want any friction, because a lot of her clients had now fallen in love with what I was doing. And, I just didn't want them to have to choose. So I left. And the Lord said, when you leave, make sure you leave right, and tell all of her clients to stay with her. Now, they can do what they want to do. A lot of them came anyway, but I made it clear, stay here and I'll go and I'll build somewhere else. And that's what I did. And the Lord opened up a door for me to start my own business. And the Lord brought back the name Adorations. And
what does that name? What does that name mean? Adoration.
So Adorations is a worship, and it is a homage that you only give to God. That you only give to someone who is deserving of your feelings, your emotions. And so I said, that's perfect. I'll name it Adorations. And that way, when people ask me what the name means or why did I name it that, I can witness. And that will be my opportunity to tell people about God. And so God blessed me to open my salon. He blessed a lot of people, because again, back in San Jose, California, the man said, you're going to have so many clients that you're going to have to hire somebody to help take care of your children. And I couldn't see that at the time. But in 2013, that's what the Lord did for me. He opened up the door for me to have my own business. I had to hire somebody, and I didn't trust anybody with my children other than my mama. So I hired my mom, and God just used me and used that space. He worked miracles there. Different people saw God's handiwork literally at my salon, and I was able to minister and witness to women.
I want to talk a little bit. You have written a book. There's someone in the stream. Ani Lane is in the book, and we did a session with her. She wrote a book, Before the Sunrise, that chronicled an experience with her ex-husband and the things that she went through, nicknaming the situation Dirty John, if you've ever seen the TV show. You wrote a book, Chronicles of a Covered Girl. Mm-hmm. What was the purpose? Now you are an author. You are an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. You are now an author. Why, or what was the motivation behind the book?
Well, honestly, if I'm completely honest, I didn't want to write the book. The Lord told me to write the book. I did not want to write the book, because I said, if I start telling my story, I feel like people are going to feel like I'm throwing them under the bus. And I did not want to write the book. And so I said, Lord, if you want me to write this book, then you're going to have to show me how to do it and how to format it. And so God said, make chronicles and only talk about the miracles and the testimonies that I've given you. And so it's not everything. Of course, there's 14 chronicles in the book. And so I share 14 different chronicles of my life where God gets the glory. And so here I am, and I'm not wanting to write this book. And, God started speaking to, everybody, the cat, the dog, everybody. He just started speaking to all kinds of people, saying, I don't know what it is about you, but you have to write a book. You have to write. And I'm like, Lord, you just telling everybody that I got to, so I'm like, okay, yes, Lord. So what prompted me to do it and not feel bad about my story and having to, not put people out there like that. God said, don't mention anybody's names. Just talk about, what it is that you went through and how I got the glory. And so there was a young lady that came to my salon and she says, Andrea, your book is, you've already said, you know, when you do write the book, it's going to be Chronicles of a Covered Girl. By this time I had told her what the Lord had told me. And she says, don't worry about covering them. Talk about how God covered you. You're too focused on covering people, but if you were there and you did do it, that's just part of the history, and that's the side of history that you chose to be on. So if they feel, you know, any type of way, that's the side of history that they chose to be on. And I said, Lord, you're going to have to still deal with me. So the Lord said, Jesus wasn't the only person that died on the cross at Calvary. But what made his crucifixion so unique is the story that led up to his crucifixion and who he was. And there were 2 other people that died at Calvary that same day. So it wasn't just the fact that he died. It's the fact that he died, rose again, but it was who he was and is. And so the story that led up to him, you couldn't leave out Judas without talking about everything that happened. You had to talk about Judas. You had to, because that made his story different than the other 2 that were on the cross. And so God said, you have to talk about people that you're trying to, you know, shield from being, you know, looked at different. And, you know, and again, I didn't say anybody's names, but God said, you have to talk about Judas. You have to talk about these things, because that's how I get my glory. It has to be bad so that people can know that I brought you out, and I brought you out with a mighty hand.
Andrea, I want to interject, because when we look at this, you know, someone put in the stream, Beauty and Brains. The first chapter 1 of Chronicles of a Covered Girl is titled Ugly Andy. Why would that be? Explain Ugly Andy.
Well, when I was a little girl, I struggled with a nervous disorder. And the nervous disorder that I had is called trichotillomania. And trichotillomania is an overwhelming desire. And most children have it, and sometimes it runs into your adult, you know, hood, and it's genetics. Sometimes it's in your DNA, sometimes your so trichotillomania is an overwhelming desire to pull out your hair, to pull out all your hair, your eyelashes. It's just there's this feeling that you feel that nothing else alleviates this stinging that you have, and the only thing that alleviates that is when you pull your hair out. And so I struggled with that. I looked like a little girl who had cancer. I didn't have hair because I had pulled out all of my hair. I had pulled out all of my eyelashes. And so when you see a person who's gone through chemotherapy, you can imagine, or alopecia, you can imagine what I look like. And so that was the first testimony that I could ever remember how God delivered me. And I was about, I would say, around the 3rd to the 5th grade. And I had pulled out all my hair, and my parents were praying, and people were fasting and praying for me, and nothing didn't seem like it was working. And so there was a child psychologist that came to the school, and they told my mom, they said, you know, hey, take her over here, let her talk to this person. And my mom says, in the appointment room, when I got into the psychologist's office, she asked me to draw pictures, and all the pictures that I drew were black. And I would have dreams like all night long. I didn't get sleep. I didn't get rest. And I was never troubled at home, but I was troubled and stressed at school. I had a very mean teacher, and it would cause me anxiety. It would cause me to be nervous, and I would pull out my hair, and nobody could figure out what was going on. And so I would dream all night that I was fighting the devil. I mean, I could see the devil. It's like I could see him. Nobody else could see him. I could see him, and I was wrestling with him all night long. And so my mother said I would toss and turn in the bed, but I would never hit the floor. Like I would never fall. And so I would draw these pictures of all this black on these pictures. And they brought it out to my mom, and she was like, oh my God, what is going on with my daughter? And so I went back in the room, and my mother, she said the Lord spoke to her in that waiting room while she was waiting for me. And he told her to go to the book of Isaiah. And I believe it's around the 30th. I can't remember what book, what chapter it is, but I think it's around the 33rd or 34th chapter. But it starts out with, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. And he said, get your daughter. I'm going to heal her. Take her out of the room now. So my mom got up, she closed the Bible, and she says, thank you for your services, but the Lord spoke to me and he's going to heal my daughter, and we're never coming back. And so fast forward a few weeks, there was a revival that was going on in another city that my great-grandfather pastored. And the gentleman that ran the revival is still living. He's like in his 90s. And my mother said, I got to get to the church. I got to get to the revival. And we get to the revival, and I'm again like 8 or 9, 10 years old. And she asked me, do I want to go up for prayer? Everybody knows if I go up, you know what, because I looked like something was wrong with me because I didn't have hair or anything. And so I didn't want to go up. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. And so her mother, my grandmother, said, you go up for her and allow your faith to heal her. And she's going to stay right here because you don't want to embarrass her. So you go up for her. So my mother got up and she went up for prayer. And the gentleman that ran the revival, he laid hands on my mother and he said, God said, I'm ready to deliver anything that troubles you. And she began to talk about me. And from that moment on, I can't make this stuff up. From that moment on, God took the desire, he took the urge for me to pull out my hair, and it just started growing. From that moment on, the Lord instantly.
When I look at part of your life, when we look at what you've been able to accomplish, being an entrepreneur, businesswoman, you got your bachelor's degree. What is next on the horizon? You've raised your children. You have done some amazing things. What's on the horizon for Andrea?
Well, I'm currently in grad school and I've currently switched careers. The Lord has put me in. Anybody knows me knows I love children. I love children I don't want to have anymore, but I love other people's children. I love my children and I love children. And so I am now working for the Department of Children and Family Services. And so I find so much gratification in that career. I mean, it's the hardest job you'll ever love. And it provides ministry for me. And the Lord has dealt with me in dreams. I never knew that I would be in this field, but God dealt with me in a dream. And he said, I would always dream about children and babies, and people would give me their child, or they would leave a baby on the doorstep for me or something. I always had to take care of these children. And so the Lord blessed me to now be in the career of children and family services. And so I tend to children and families, and it's so rewarding. It's a lot of work. Some days I think about it and I'm like, Lord, give me strength, help me to, help these people. And so again, it's the hardest job you'll ever love. So I'm now into a new career. Hopefully one day Mr. Right will come along and I can, be married again. But I'm just enjoying my time with God. I'm enjoying my time serving other people. I'm again finishing and working through grad school, and so far that's what I have on my plate. I mean, I'm sure eye have not seen, ear have not heard, and it's not even entered in my mind what God has for me. But I again walk by faith.
Chronicles of a Covered Girl. How can they get that particular book?
So I have that particular book. It is right now on Amazon. It is $20, and this is when I had blonde hair. So that is me. Can you see it? Can everybody see? Chronicles of a Covered Girl. And so, can you see it good? Okay. And it is on Amazon. So you can purchase the book on Amazon and just Google Chronicles of a Covered Girl.
Well, I certainly thank you for your time on today. We look forward to this conversation and other conversations. Next week, tune in. We'll talk to the Jack and Jill Foundation and what they have going on that the community can play a part of. I thank you guys for your time and attention every single week. And as always, love yourselves, take care of each other. Grace and peace.
Thank you. Bye-bye.